The rain had begun as a soft drizzle, the sort that drifted through the streetlights like mist. By the time Mark pushed open the door of the small noodle shop, his jacket was already damp. He had picked up a late shift at the loading docks and just wanted something warm before heading home to his son. The place smelled of ginger and broth, and he was halfway through placing his order when he noticed movement outside the window. A group of teenagers stood near the doorway with their phones raised. Their laughter cut through the quiet of the street. At first, Mark thought they were recording a prank, but then he saw the boy they had cornered. He sat on the curb, arms wrapped around his knees, tears sliding down his cheeks. His hearing aid blinked weakly against his ear. The boys around him did not seem to care. The cameras kept rolling. One of them stepped closer and said something Mark could not hear, but whatever it was made the child flinch. Mark felt his heartbeat kick, that old protective instinct that came from years of raising his own child alone. He stepped outside without thinking. The air was cool and smelled of wet pavement. The teenagers noticed him right away. They nudged each other and muttered something under their breath. Mark ignored them and knelt in front of the boy. He signed the words slowly so the child could see his hands. "Are you hurt?" The boy shook his head. His hands trembled as he signed. "They were making fun of me. They followed me from the bus stop. They took my bag." Mark looked over his shoulder. One of the kids smirked. The others waited to see what Mark would do. "Give it back," Mark said quietly. The tallest one puffed out his chest. "Who are you supposed to be?" Mark did not speak right away. He stood, straightened his jacket, and met the boy's eyes with calm that came from many years of biting back anger. "My son is your age. If someone did this to him, I would want someone to help. Give it back." Something in his voice made them shift. The leader dug through his backpack and tossed the smaller bag to the ground. The group backed away, their earlier bravado slipping. When Mark stepped toward them, not in threat but in clear disappointment, the boys lowered their phones. For a moment, shame flickered across their faces. One of them whispered sorry and hurried off. The others followed, their laughter gone. Mark bent down and picked up the bag. He handed it to the boy and asked again if he was hurt. The child wiped his eyes and shook his head. The restaurant door opened behind them. A woman stepped out, her umbrella tilted to shield her from the rain. She had been sitting by the window and had seen everything. Her dark hair clung to her cheeks, and her expression carried a mix of worry and a tenderness Mark did not expect. "I saw what happened," she said softly. "Is he all right?" The boy nodded but did not speak. His face reddened with the effort to steady himself. She crouched beside him and took out a napkin from her coat pocket. She signed a greeting. Her movements were more fluid than Mark's. He watched the boy's shoulders loosen. Relief swept through his face. The woman smiled as she asked his name. "It is Daniel." He signed it with a small flourish. She told him that her name was Miriam and asked where he lived. Daniel explained that he had been on his way home but had gotten frightened when the boys started following him. His words came in short bursts, as if he feared taking up space. "Do you want us to walk you home?" she asked. He nodded with sudden eagerness. Mark fell into step beside them as they began walking down the quiet street. Rainwater rushed along the curb. The lamps cast long reflections that shimmered with each step. Daniel walked between them, clutching his bag. Mark glanced at the woman. Her presence eased the tension that had filled the moment. She walked with quiet grace, her umbrella tilted in a way that sheltered Daniel more than herself. She seemed to understand him without effort. "You know sign language well," Mark said after a moment. She smiled. "My younger sister is deaf. I was the one who helped her through school. It teaches you to listen differently." They fell silent again, not awkward but thoughtful. The boy led them through a series of streets until they reached a modest building with chipped paint and glowing porch lights. When they arrived, Daniel hesitated before ringing the bell. The door opened and his father appeared, panic spreading across his face when he saw his son's tear-stained cheeks. It took only a moment to explain what had happened. Daniel's father took his hand and thanked Mark with a depth that made Mark's throat tighten. He thanked the woman as well, bowing his head slightly in gratitude. As the door closed, Mark realized he and the woman were still standing close, their umbrellas nearly touching. The rain had softened into a gentle patter. She let out a quiet breath. "I am glad you stepped in. Not everyone would." "You would have," he said. "You already did." She looked at him for a long moment. There was something curious in her expression, something that suggested she had noticed more than he realized. "You are raising your son alone, right?" He blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "You mentioned him. And the way you spoke to those boys. People do not learn that kind of calm unless they have already had to be strong for someone." He felt a warmth rise in his chest. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at him that way. "Would you like to get something warm to drink?" she asked. "We are already close to the restaurant." He nodded. They walked back together. The street felt different now, as if the rain had washed away more than the dust. When they stepped inside, the lights cast a soft glow over the tables. The scent of broth and tea drifted through the air. They sat near the window where it had all begun. Outside, the sidewalk glistened. Inside, the air felt calm. Mark realized that a simple act of kindness had opened a door he never expected. Not just for a scared boy on a rainy night but for himself. And as the woman smiled at him across the table, he sensed that this was the start of something neither of them had seen coming.